Hi everyone. So today we will discuss the first organ system in human body, which is the integumentary system. Okay, just remember that system consists of organs. Okay, so system is actually organization of organ that perform specific function. For the integumentary system, the organ is actually only one. Okay, only one organ that makes this integumentary system, which is the skin. So the skin is the only organ that makes up the integumentary system. This skin is also have the accessory organs, okay, accessory structure like the hair. Okay, so the hair is the accessory structure of the skin, nail, and some exocrine glands that include the sweat gland, oil glands, the wax glands in our ears, and the milk glands. Okay, so these are the structure of integumentary system that consists of skin and its accessory structures, hair, nail, and exocrine glands. Now, what is the functions of this integumentary system? Function of integumentary system. Okay, and because this is only one organ, this is actually also the functions of the skin. Skin is the largest organs in human body. Okay, so what's the function of the skin? First, we know the skin cover our body. So the first function will be for protection. Right? So protections against water loss, or dehydrations, protections against harmful substances. Okay, UV radiations. So there is a special cell in our skin that protect us against this UV radiation. Against microorganisms. So our skin will protect from and the entrance of microorganisms into our body. The second functions of the skin is for sensations. So we have sensory systems in the skin that sense for several stimulus. Okay, for example, for touch, temperature, pressure, pain. Okay, so that's the sensations functions of the skin. The next functions will be skin is also used for excretions. Okay, which is removal of some waste products. Okay, like salt, okay, ammonia, it may be also excreted through the skin. The next functions for the skin is for productions of uh, precursor of vitamin D. Okay, so the vitamin D itself is made in kidney, but the first substrate for the precursor for the vitamin D is actually made in the skin by the help of UV light. So this sunlight actually will increase the production of this precursor vitamin D. So that's the reason why the people that live in the area that have less sunlight, it might have higher risk of getting the osteoporosis. And also someone or people that do not like to take calcium on their diet will also have the higher risk of getting the osteoporosis. And the last functions will be regulations of body temperature. Usually by productions of sweat. So when we do exercise, for example, our body temperature will be increased. So in order to reduce this body temperatures, then our skin, which is the accessory structure of the skin, the sweat then will produce the sweat. And the sweat will actually take a lot of heat from our body. So it will reduce the body temperature. Now, in order to understand these functions, we need to learn the structure of the skin. Okay, remember the structure, okay, will fit the functions. So just by learning the structure, you usually will be able to guess the functions of the organ or the structure. Now, what is the structure of the skin? First, we have to know that there are two types of skin. Okay, so there are two types of skin. The first one is the thin skin. Okay, and the second one is the thick skin. So we have two types of skin in our body, thin skin and thick skin. Now, what are the characteristics of these two different skin? The thin skins, the name is telling you this skin is thinner, eh, while the thick skin's gonna be thicker. Okay, so this thin skin is thinner because it only have 4 layers of epidermal cell. Okay, while the thicker skin have 5 layers of epidermis. Okay. Second, in the thin skin, you will see the hair. Okay, so thin skin will have hairs, while the thick skin you will not see the hair. So there is no hairs, okay, on the thick skin. And the hair is usually associated by the oil glands. So that's the reason why, your hair is shiny, oily, is because its hair will be connected to the oil gland. So therefore, in the thin skin, you will find oil glands. But in the thick skin, there will be no oil glands. Okay. The thin skin, it will have less sweat gland, while the thick skin will have more sweat. Okay, so now you should be able to find which part of your body have the thin skin and the thick skin. Okay, the thick skin is located only on several places on your body, which is on the palm and the soles. Okay, so you see that on your palm, you will not see the hair. Also in the sole, there will be no hair. And this palm and soles, they usually sweat more because what? Because this area, the thick skin, they have more sweat gland. Okay, so this the differences between the thin skin and the thick skin. Thin skin will have only 4 layers of epidermis, while the thicker skin will have 5 layers of epidermis. Now we will see which one is epidermis on the skin. So we're going to see the structure of the skin. Okay. So the skin will have 2 main layers. Okay, the top layer is called epidermis. And the bottom layer is called dermis. Okay, epidermis and dermis. The epidermis mostly consists of epithelial tissue. Okay, And if you recall that epithelial tissue is the tissue type that consists of cells that bind together closely. So the cell on the epidermis will be bind closely together tightly. So they make many layers. Okay, so this epidermis consists of epithelial tissue, which is stratified squamous epithelial tissue. So the primary function of this epidermis will be for protection because it has so many layers of cell in this epidermis. So the primary functions will be for protection. Okay. Dermis mostly consists of connective tissue. Okay, remember connective tissue consists of cell and matrix. So this is connective tissue. Okay. The main type of connective tissue in the dermis is areolar connective tissue, which is a type of loose connective tissue. And then in the dermis, you will also find other tissue, like there will be sensory system. Okay, so and then you will also find the blood vessels in this dermis. Okay, and if it is thin skin, then you will find the hair that is growing from this dermis. Okay, and because it has hair, then you will also find the oil glands associated with this hair. Okay, and there will be also sweat glands located in the dermis. Okay, so this the structure of dermis, which is more complex compared to the epidermis. So again, there are two main layers of the skin, the epidermis and the dermis. Now we're gonna look at the epidermis. Okay, epidermis layer. If this one is thick skin, then there will be 5 layers in the epidermis. Okay, so the bottom layer, the one that's connected to the dermis. Okay, so the first layer over here is called the stratum Vaseline. Okay, so stratum vaseline. In this stratum vaseline, it mostly consists of stem cell that divide, okay, to produce new cell. So your skin is actually will always be replaced by the new cell, okay, which is the stratum basale will consist of stem cell that create a new cell. And this new cell will be moved to above layer. Okay, so the next layer is called the stratum spinosum. Okay, this is going to be the thickest layer of the epidermis. The next layer will be called as the stratum granulosum. Okay. In this layer, the cell will contain many granules. That granule is actually keratin, and the keratin is proteins that protects again water loss. Okay, so this is water resistant proteins. It will be located in this cell, okay, in the form of granules. So there's the reason why that layer is called the stratum granulosum. And the next layer will be called as stratum lucidum. Okay. This stratum lucidum will consist of dead cell. So the cell, the stratum lucidum actually dead cell. And the top layer, the outside layer of our skin, will also consist of dead cell, and this layer is called the stratum corneum. Okay, so most of this cell in this layer will be removed and will be replaced by the cells from bottom part. So these are the 5 layer of the thick skin. If it is a thin skin, then it only consists of 4 layers. And the layer that is not present in the thin skin is the stratum lucidum. Okay, this stratum lucidum is not present in thin skin. Okay, and also remember, if it is thin skin, then there will be hair. Okay, so in the thin skin, so let's say this is a thin skin. Then there will be hair, yeah, and oil gland, yeah, in the dermis of the thin skin. So for the thin skin, there are only 4 layers. Okay, Okay, so the Stratum Vaseline, and then Stratum Spinosum, Stratum Granulosum, and finally the Stratum corneum. There is no stratum lucidum in the thin skin. Now we will go to the next layer, which is the dermis. So this is epidermis, then there will be dermis below that epidermis. So this dermis will have two main layers. The top layer is called the papillary regions. Okay. These papillary regions look like a finger-like structure. And this finger-like structure is called dermal papillae. And this is actually the one that give fingerprints. So everybody will have specific structure of dermal papillae, and then it will give the specific fingerprints. So everybody will have different fingerprints because of this dermal papillae. And the second layer of the dermis, which is the thicker layer, is called the reticular regions. Okay. So again, if it is thin skin, then the hair will be growing from this reticular regions. Okay. And the hair will consist of the longest part is called the hair shaft, which is part of the hair that we see. Okay, so this is hair shaft, and this hair shaft is actually consists of dead cell. And in the reticular regions, there will be hair root. Okay, close to the hair root, there will be area where the hair cell will be growing, and that area is called the hair follicle. Okay, so hair follicle consists of stem cell, hair stem cell that keep growing. Someone with cancer, they usually take the chemotherapy, and the chemotherapy usually will kill the hair follicle. Therefore, someone that receive the chemotherapy, usually they will not have hair because the hair follicle will be destroyed by the chemotherapy. And then the hair will always connected with oil gland. So there will be oil glands in this reticular region. And there will be also another glands in the reticular regions, which is the sweat gland. And sweat gland will have the channel, okay, or called the duct, that will release the sweat into outside our body. So this is sweat gland. Okay, and there will be also spatial sensory system. It's a sensory receptor. that will send for like touch, for example. And of course, there will be blood vessels in this epidermis, and these blood vessels will reach to the epidermis. So give blood to the epidermis. So epidermis actually do not have blood vessel. Therefore, if you cut your epidermis, for example, there will be no blood because there is no blood vessel in the epidermis. So this epidermis will receive the blood or nutrients from the dermis area. Okay, so these are the structure of uh, epidermis and dermis. So as we know that the function of the skin is for protection is mainly given by the epidermis, because epidermis consists of many layers of cell that able to protect against water loss, against microorganism, physical damage, chemicals, uh, and other things that might harm our body. And the second functions, like for example, for protections against body temperature, okay, control body temperatures will be given by the dermis. In the dermis, we have the sweat gland that will produce the sweat when our body temperature increase. In the dermis, we also have sensory system that sense for changings, like maybe touch or stimulus, like uh, temperature change and etc. Also have the oil glands that will produce the oil, and also we have the hair. Hair actually also connected with the sensory system. Okay, so hair actually can receive the sensation. It's very fine sensation can be sensed by the hair because the hair is actually connected to sensory receptor also. So this is the structure of epidermis and dermis. Now we will go back to the epidermis and see what type of cell is actually located in the epidermis. So there are different type of cell that's located in the epidermis, and this cell will have different function. So there are four type of cell in epidermis. Okay. The first one is called keratinocyte. Okay. So about 99% of cells in the epidermis is actually in this type, keratinocyte. And the name is telling us this keratinocyte, okay? Cyte means cell. Keratin is a water repellent proteins. Okay, so the name is telling you that this keratinocyte is actually produce the keratin, which is the protein that protects us against water loss. And this keratinocyte will make many layers in the epidermis. So this is the main protection of the skin is actually coming from this keratinocyte. Okay, and also remember in the stratum basale, there will be a lot of stem cell for the keratinocyte, and this cell will produce new keratinocyte that loss. Okay, the top layer will be dead keratinocyte, and this dead keratinocyte will be replaced by the new cell that is coming from this bottom layer. So this is the main type of cell in the epidermis, which is the keratinocyte. The second type of cells in epidermis is called melanocyte. Okay, remember again, cyte means cell, and melano is actually melanin. Melanin is a dark skin pigment. Okay, so this name is actually telling you that this cell is actually produce melanin, which is the dark skin pigment. So they are scattered mostly close to the stratum basale. So there are melanocyte. Okay, and everybody will have the same number of melanocytes. It doesn't matter whether you have a dark skin color or light skin color. The number of melanocytes is actually the same. The one that make different is the production. So people with the dark skin color will produce more melanin compared to people with the light skin color. And melanin production will be stimulated by light. Okay, so light is actually stimulate the melanin production. So this is the reason why people that live in the tropical area, their skin will be darker. So they have darker skin because they live in area that have a lot of light or sunlight. It is also the reason why people that want to have darker color, like tanning color, they have to go to the tanning bed, which is actually they receive light to increase the melanin production. Okay, so melanocyte is the second type of cell in epidermis. The third type of cell in epidermis is called Langerhan cell. This Langerhans cell is actually white blood cell that stay in the skin, in the epidermis. So we know the function of white blood cell is to fight against infection like bacteria. So this white blood cell, the Langerhans cell, will be scattered in the epidermis. Okay, so sometimes in the lower part, sometimes going up a little bit to upper part of the epidermis. And because this cell is actually able to move from one space to another space in order to fight against infection. Okay, maybe against bacteria. So this is the third type of cell in the epidermis. And the last type of cells in the epidermis is called the Merkel cell. Okay. And this Merkel cell is actually specialized for sensation. So this is sensory receptor for touch. Okay, so touch stimulus have a special sensory receptor is called the Merkel cell. Mostly Merkel cell will be located close to the stratum basal. Then I use another yellow color for this. Okay, so this is Merkel cell, and this Merkel cell will be associated with the sensory system, which is touch sensory receptor. Okay, so these are the four types of cells in the epidermis. Again, the most abundant one will be the keratinocyte. because this is the one that produce keratin, water repellent proteins, and this keratinocyte will protect us against many things, against water loss, dehydrations, against damage, physical damage, and many more. Okay, because they are actually in many layers, hundred, even thousand of layers of these keratinocytes will be present in the epidermis. The second cell is called the melanocyte, and this is the one that gives us the skin color. And just remember again, everybody will have the same number of melanocytes, but the difference will be production of melanin. People that live in the tropical area will produce more melanins, and therefore their skin will be darker. And after long years living in the tropical area, it's become part of their gene. So they will produce, their melanocyte is actually able to produce more melanin compared to other type of people, okay, light skin color people, for example. And the next will be the Langerhans cell, and this is actually white blood cell that used for fighting against pathogens like bacteria. And the last one is going to be the Numerical Cell, and this is the one that helps us to sense touch. So it has special function for receiving touch sensation. I think that's all for this skin structure. We will continue later with the accessory organ of the skin. Goodbye now.